Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely rewrite the rules on how you approach your goals, your habits, and honestly, your own mind. We're setting the stage to absolutely shatter a fundamental misconception about self-control. For years, we've all been operating under a deeply, deeply flawed premise when it comes to changing our lives. And well, it's finally time to correct it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Look, I am almost certain you've told yourself this exact phrase, probably 1,000 times over. It is painfully relatable, isn't it? You make a mistake, you slip up on a goal, and your immediate reaction is to just blame yourself. You tell yourself that starting tomorrow, you're just going to be stronger. But what if trying harder is actually the exact reason you keep failing?
Part 1. The willpower myth. Let's look at why trying harder simply fails.
So you probably think you keep failing at your goals because, well, you're just not strong enough, right? But modern psychology actually shows us that your brain is basically being hijacked. Most people picture discipline as this really loud, aggressive thing, gritting your teeth, clenching your fists, and just forcing yourself through the day. But the reality? The most effective level of discipline relies entirely on quiet automaticity. It's all about building an architecture around yourself where doing the right thing just happens automatically without that constant, utterly exhausting inner battle.
Which brings us to part 2, the dopamine trap, how we get hijacked by our environment.
To really get why this white-knuckling approach just doesn't work, we have to look at how our digital environments are literally stealing our attention, like a psychological heist. I want you to pause for a second and honestly answer this for me. What is your brain actually hooked on? When you reach for your phone, or you open up a new tab, or you grab that junk food, what is biological hook? You might think it's the video itself or the taste of the food, but the reality is far more deceptive. Now, what's really interesting here is the ultimate illusion of bad habits. Your brain doesn't actually get hooked on the habit itself. No, it gets hooked on the anticipation. That massive, overwhelming spike of dopamine, it happens right before you click play or right before you reach for the snack. Your brain is basically whispering this false promise that the next hit will finally satisfy you, but it never actually does. You're trapped chasing the anticipation, not the actual reward. So let's get into part 3, the friction method, and how adding tiny resistance changes everything. If willpower is a total myth, how do we actually escape this loop? Well, we stop feeling helpless, and we get highly tactical. Psychologists have proven that if you add even a tiny, almost microscopic bit of physical or digital resistance to a bad habit, it immediately begins to lose its grip on you. You don't have to fight these impulses with sheer mental strength anymore. Just a tiny barrier forces your brain out of that primitive, instant reaction survival mode and pulls it right back into reasoning mode. It forces you to actually stop and think about what you're doing. Let's apply this to the real world right now. Say you're struggling with spending way too much time on YouTube. Don't just tell yourself to stop watching. That doesn't work. Instead, try these 3 steps. First, move the app into a hidden folder. Second, log out of your account every single time you close it. And third, go into the settings and turn off all recommendations. Notice how you haven't outright banned the app? You've just added enough annoying friction that your brain is forced to wake up and ask, wait a second, do I actually want to go through all this effort to do this right now? And that leads us to part 4, programming your autopilot to automate those good habits. Because destroying bad habits, well, that's really only half the equation here. To truly outsmart yourself, you have to automate the good ones. We do this by replacing emotional decision-making with what's called an implementation intention. This is a profoundly simple psychological concept, but it's a total game changer. It completely removes the need for motivation or hype to get started. You stop waiting around to feel ready, and you rely entirely on a fixed plan. So the crucial point here is how most people start their day. They wake up and ask a really dangerous question. Do I feel like being productive today? That leaves your success entirely up to whatever mood you happen to wake up in. A truly disciplined mind just removes the question entirely. It simply says, it's 8 a.m., so I do the work. Boom! There's no internal argument, no debate. You are training your habits to run on a completely silent, predetermined autopilot. All right, moving right along to part 5, the hard reset. We need to talk about dopamine panic. Now, I do have to give you a bit of a warning here. When you start applying this friction, it is not going to be entirely comfortable at first. Let's walk through this timeline together so you know what to expect. On day 1, when you finally stop the constant binging and scrolling, your brain might literally panic. The silence is going to feel pretty terrifying, but you have to hold the line. Because a few days in, a hard reset occurs.
Fast forward to the future, and you'll realize you're actually getting dopamine from real life again, from finishing a difficult task, from making actual progress, or just from being present in the moment. You are fundamentally becoming the kind of person an algorithm can no longer control.
And as you undergo this hard reset, you really need to remember this golden rule. Real intelligence and true discipline, they're quiet, they are controlled, and they are silent. I strongly advise you not to announce your new grind to the world. Psychology actually tells us that when you talk too much about your goals, your brain tricks you into feeling like you've already achieved them. It literally robs you of your drive. So instead, move in silence. Let your consistency do all the talking for you.
Finally, let's move to part 6, the challenge. It's time to take control today.
Because absolutely everything we've talked about today means nothing if you don't actually take action. So I have a highly unconventional request for you. I am dead serious right now. I want you to close this explainer. Do not subscribe just yet. Do not click over to the next suggested piece of content. I genuinely want you to leave. But right before you close it, I'm challenging you to take immediate, real-world action. Seriously, pick just one piece of friction from this checklist to outsmart your environment today. Go log out of a distracting app, put your phone in an entirely different room, or physically hide a distraction that is stealing your time. Remember, quitting a habit isn't about having more willpower. It's about outsmarting the version of you that thinks it needs it. So what does this all mean? It means asking yourself, are you ready to prove you control your own attention? Go create that friction right now. Prove to yourself that you are the master of your own mind. And hey, if you find yourself coming back here later, not because you're desperately looking for a quick dopamine hit, but because you actively chose to keep mastering your mind, then we will be right here waiting for you. Stay focused, stay dangerous, and go outsmart yourself.